bit muffly, but we're grateful to you, Lucy, because you gave us that. That tape. Do you agree that the Brexiteers are worried, first of all, and do you think Boris Johnson's comments last night reflect that? Because quite a lot was said on that in that evening.
Yes, certainly he's worried. He made that absolutely clear. And I think, in particular, his punchy broadside at the Treasury, accusing the department of being at the heart of Remain, was pretty hard-hitting. It was interesting to me, the long transcript he spoke at a dinner that lasted more than an hour last night. He talked about how he believed people in the Treasury were were so concerned about what he felt were trumped-up fears about the short-term economic pain that will be entailed by leaving the EU, which he accepted, that they're willing to sacrifice the long-term benefits of Brexit.
Yeah, well, of course, the Treasury don't think there'll be those long-term benefits anyway, I suppose. Fraser, other resignations, Boris Johnson even.
Well, there was talk that David Davis and Boris would both resign today if we didn't get that date. But there's talks all the time of flouncing out. And even now, David Davis is expected to resign just at a slightly later date when it can achieve something. There's not much point in either of them resigning now. They've got the date. Michel Barnier will probably say, no, I don't agree with this end date. And we can kind of see what's going to happen now. If the British government has spelt out its so-called backstop position, and the EU prefer this to the deal, why would they bother to do
But
a
hang
deal?
on, the EU don't officially actually like the British version of the backstop.
Well, they don't like, their position is to reject every single thing the British come up with and wait until there's another concession and another concession. Right now, I think the backstop will probably be the most favoured option of the EU. They also know they've got to be careful, because if they're too intransigent and the Parliament doesn't vote for any deal, then the default will be no deal, or rather world trade deal.
Yeah. Peter Bone, you're a fervent Brexiteer. Basically, the government is taking us towards the backstop deal, which is a pretty soft Brexit.
Well, it's not even a soft Brexit. We're not coming out. The idea that there's a date in the document, well, it's an aspiration.
Yeah, David Davis was just deluding himself.
Well, I read it. I mean, the more I read the document, the more depressed I got. Basically, it allows us to stay effectively in the EU indefinitely. They've crossed the red line. It's not acceptable. Many of my colleagues on the back benches won't support it, and I certainly won't.
I'll tell you why a lot of Tories would disagree with Peter. We will still be leaving the EU in March. We'd be getting control over the borders. The money to the EU be going down. These are lots of pretty big wins. Now, people like Peter would say, look, if we're not in the still in the customs union, there's no real Brexit. But a lot of other Tories just want this over.
Well, and you're a Brexiteer who kind of is okay about the customs union, in fairness, aren't you? You don't have a problem.
It's not something I would die in a ditch over.
Yeah. But Peter Bone, what happens? Well, what has to happen to rescue the Brexit you want, the hard Brexit you want?
Well, actually, you just said it. I mean, it might be Mr. Barnier. He might say, oh, God, we can't agree to any of this, and we effectively fall out. Now, that's not what I want to say. I want Theresa May to say now, look, we've tried a negotiation. It's all a bit of a mess. We'll go for a world trade deal. We're going to have no more negotiations with you. We're going to come out of the EU end of March next year, where we will save £39 billion to start with. We can impose our own immigration policy. We get back our own fisheries. We can make our own trade deals. We make our own laws.
No transition.
Yeah. And of course, if you say it now, you've got enough time to put it in place. And people will say about Northern Ireland...
But are we ready? Are we ready for that?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We don't have the customs posts. We don't have...
Well,
I mean, it feels like they've been doing more preparation for this than we have.
Well, I would argue, first of all, we don't have to put any tariffs on. So, therefore, in Northern Ireland, we won't have a border.
That's actually against WTO rules. I need to point that out.
Well,
you have to have a border under WTO rules.
Don't WTO rules say there has to be sincere cooperation between and that means if you've got a line, they couldn't impose tariffs on us. So the legal situation, I don't care. I just want to come out. Let's announce it. Let's deliver what the British people wanted.
And you couldn't come out to a very soft Brexit, EEA or something like that, for 5 years while Britain thinks, considers and goes and works out how to harden the Brexit, if that's what we want to do.
I know it's difficult to remember, but 2 years ago we had a referendum and we voted to come out of this wretched thing. And while people want to keep us in and put all these... The people voted to come out. So let's just do it. And I tell you, from my party's point of view, if we don't come out, we are in big trouble.
Because a lot of businesses would say it would be very costly. Do you think, Lucy, the hard version of Brexit, the original government view, can still happen?
I think it's very unlikely. I mean, you did hear Boris Johnson last night still maintaining that no deal is better than a bad deal. But really, the Prime Minister's shown today, in the language she used in this Brexit blueprint that's now finally been published, she's in a compromising mode. She called it herself an unpalatable option. It shows how far she's willing to go. And I don't pick up in the corridors of Westminster that there are that many senior Brexiteers who are in line with Boris, willing to kind of crash out on WTO rules.
It was interesting. I was talking to somebody today who knows Theresa May's mind, and there's essentially three sorts of Brexit. There's out, there's a big negotiation, and there's what Theresa May wants in the middle, which is a bespoke negotiation. And this person who knows her very well said that is impossible. It's the big negotiation or it's the
because the EU have just said
out.
you have a menu of two.
Yeah.
If it's no deal, or we sort out Northern Ireland with the backstop and...
And we are likely to be dragged in to the worst situation if we don't do something about it now. We can't announce in the autumn that it's effectively what people call a no deal, because there really is no time to prepare. So that's why what we have to do...
Well, there isn't time to prepare now, by the way. Just
well, no, we are going to disagree on that point. But what Theresa May, it's very simple. All Theresa May has to do is get rid of all these Remainer officials and spads and put someone in charge who actually believes in Brexit, like David Davis.
OK, don't dominate Peter. Peter's other problem is the parliamentary arithmetic, isn't it? Now, what are the rebels doing, Nick?
Well, next week we have the withdrawal bill coming back, and I'm speaking to somebody on the pro-European side who said it'll be a big parliamentary event, but they don't believe there'll be a big government defeat. The government's tabled some amendments in lieu. But essentially the deal between Theresa May and the pro-Europeans is she says, don't defeat me next week because you'll weaken my hand in the June Council in Brussels where I'm doing things that you like. But you can have your chance in July.
Defeat me in
July. The trade bill will come back then. The rebels have already put an amendment down on the EEA, got 14 signatures, and there is already an amendment to take the UK into a customs union.
Is that possibly going to potentially win, Fraser?
Well, I right now can't see any version of Brexit was going to get majority support in Parliament. And if there isn't, then no deal is the default. People forget Parliament has already endorsed and voted for no deal with Article 50. So I'd say there is a non-negligible chance that we might end up with this hard Brexit, not because people want it, but because they can't agree on what they'd rather have instead.
Lucy, who benefits from the Theresa May strategy, just kicking the can down the road, delaying and delaying what feels like the ultimate showdown between the hard and the soft version?
Well, I mean, there's nothing else she can really do, is there? I mean, she's been between a rock and a hard place. The majority, I think there is parliamentary arithmetic there in the Commons to keep the UK inside a customs union. So she's stuck with enough Tory pro-EU rebels, numbering about 13, 14, in the Commons, and then on the other hand, you've got the ERG, the sort of Brexiteers, of whom Peter's one.
No, I'm sorry.
He's not
You're on the
ERG,
but also one of the
Brexiteers.
Brexiteers who, you know, especially with the summer season parties, warm prosecco upon us, could be plotting this ouster if they think that she's not going to go their way.
Back into the season of warm prosecco. My goodness. Thank you all very much indeed.